The European Central Bank and the IMF confirm all the money. Yes, XRP. This is going to be one of the most important, juiciest deep dives you ever seen on both platforms. Consider smashing that like, because guess what? This guy, Apex Crypto Consulting, Jesse, is going to interject some key alpha like you've never seen before. We have taken the liberty of getting into so many big things. This is a 5-hour video. We got to all the key areas that matter to you. Yes, you, even the person that's driving down the road. Let's get into the material. First thing is from Christine Lagarde. Yes, Christine Lagarde. She used to be part of the IMF. Well, she pointed out at 5:35 a.m., follow live, because she'll be speaking at the Bank of Finland's 4th International Monetary Conference in Helsinki. Her remarks will address current geopolitical challenges and their impact on monetary policy. All right, where did this lead to? Well, for one, I'm not going to have you guys listen to 4.5 hours of these guys, but where the case be, I want to point out some key things here, because this gentleman here is over in Finland, all right? And basically, this was Governor Olli Rehn of the Bank of Finland. He introduces Lagarde, but what's important is where he starts off about artificial intelligence and stablecoins, as well as crypto and other things. Listen to this. We'll jump over to these key areas here in a little bit. Here we go.
Artificial intelligence and stablecoins and cryptos. There are other things in the world to discuss as well.
3 years was incredibly important in stabilizing the situation, but by itself did not solve the problem. And what was the problem, remaining problem? I go back to the issue of the lender of last resort in Europe.
Oh, great Scott!
Yes, the ECB was providing funding for the banks, and the banks were buying government bonds, but to the markets, this amplified the doom loop, the connection between the banks and the sovereigns. There were two important elements which enabled the ECB to do the major event. One was the fiscal compact being agreed among the European governments, which gave, while some of us were somewhat critical of some of the elements, they probably went overboard at the time, but nonetheless it allowed a framework for fiscal consolidation and preventing fiscal problems in the future. And I think the second here, again, was a policy issue, was the banking union. Because by moving away the supervision from the individual authorities to the ECB, it provided a huge anchor of stability.
You're usually dealing with fiat, so you're usually trusting a particular entity anyway. Like if your anchor is, if you have dollars from your anchor, some bank, basically, if that bank decides to like cheat you, then they're going to cheat you, right? Whether you have running stellar core or not.
And I think those enable the ECB to announce the famous OMT that stabilized the situation without spending €1.
In 2012, during one of the most challenging periods of the Eurozone debt crisis, the European Central Bank made a bold move that would change the course of European financial history. ECB President Mario Draghi announced the outright monetary transactions program, famously declaring he would do whatever it takes to preserve the euro. This unprecedented commitment marked a turning point in the crisis and demonstrated the ECB's determination to maintain the stability of the Eurozone. The OMT program was designed as a powerful and unconventional monetary policy tool with several key features. At its core was the ECB's ability to make unlimited purchases of short-term government bonds from Eurozone member states in secondary markets. These purchases would focus on bonds with maturities between 1 and 3 years. To prevent inflation, the program included a crucial sterilization component, meaning that any liquidity created through bond purchases would be fully withdrawn from the market. One of the program's most important aspects was its strict conditionality. Countries seeking assistance under the OMT program had to first request a bailout from the European Stability Mechanism and commit to a comprehensive macroeconomic adjustment program. This requirement ensured that governments would implement necessary fiscal and economic reforms, addressing the root causes of their financial difficulties. Additionally, the ECB took the unprecedented step of waiving its seniority status, meaning it would not have preferential treatment over private bondholders in case of default. What makes the OMT program particularly fascinating is that it never needed to be activated. The mere announcement of the program was sufficient to restore market confidence and stabilize the Eurozone. This psychological effect demonstrated the power of central bank communication and credible commitments. Borrowing costs for crisis-stricken countries like Spain and Italy decreased significantly as investors were reassured by the ECB's explicit guarantee to support stressed government bonds. The success of the OMT program and Draghi's whatever it takes speech effectively eliminated fears of the Eurozone's collapse. By removing the risk of currency redenomination, the possibility that some countries might return to their national currencies, the ECB successfully addressed one of the main sources of market panic. This remarkable achievement showed how a well-designed policy framework, combined with strong institutional commitment, could overcome even the most severe financial challenges facing the European Monetary Union.
Why was the OMT effective? Because it was prepared to provide, and I think this is important in terms of the context of the lender of last resort, unlimited support to sovereigns purchasing their bonds. It was accompanied with conditionality, so it was not free money. And very importantly, from a market point of view, market was treated pari passu. So that also reassured markets. So I think those are the elements. Now, all of us remember the whatever it takes, but those were the elements that encapsulated that whatever it takes. It was substance behind it that stabilized the Eurozone. So I hope, Oliver, was an accurate description of what we both went through. So let me conclude on this with sort of my conclusions of that. The lender of last resort function is of critical importance. Whether it's national or in the Eurozone, also cross-border, or whether it is international, and I would say the Fed dollar swap lines fall into that category. It's some form of liquidity lender of last resort.
We're going to pause right there. A lot of things were just mentioned, and keep in mind, this is only a few hours ago, okay? So, Jesse, I'm going to jump over to you for a bit. We got so much more to get into. Wow, right? The terminology. How many times have we both talked about XRP, lender of last resort? So I went through 5 hours of that, just priming it, ready for you and I to do this collab. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about this.
I got to ask you one thing. At the very beginning of the video, did he say the word liquidity the very first time?
He did mention liquidity, absolutely.
The video talking about liquidity, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh my goodness. So first of all, he talks about the ECB here, the European Central Bank, and he said, we're printing this money. Technically, they're giving money. I'm not giving, okay, but he says more importantly, they have conditions attached. So the ECB, central bank, lends money to sovereign, which is governments, and he said, but more importantly, there's conditions attached. So this is crazy, guys. You have to understand. Central bankers lend to governments, and then the governments have to sign over all these different things, and it's crazy. It comes with conditions, okay? There's always talking about lender of last resort, lender of last resort. The real lender of last resort globally is the IMF. So then he talks about, whether talks about liquidity, and then he talks about a lender of last resort, whether it's cross-border, whether it's a lender of last resort that does cross-border. And then again, he comes and talks about how crucial is liquidity. Now, what is Ripple's main product? What is Ripple's main product? It's called on-demand liquidity, ODL. That's Ripple's main product. And when Miguel Villas was asked, when he used to be at Ripple, he came from CME Group, went to Ripple. When he was asked by Thinking Crypto about what they're going to do with their 50 billion escrow, what's their plans? He said, well, I don't think we would ever sell all of our XRP, in escrow. Maybe we could be a lender of last resort, or maybe we could pass them off to another institution, pass off our XRP to another institution, and they could become like a lender of last resort. Sorry, I had to clear my throat there. So he's admitting here that Ripple could become a lender of last resort or pass off the escrow or some of the cryptos, some of the tokens, XRP tokens to another institutions, and they could become a lender of last resort. Now, you have to understand that the IMF is really the only true lender of last resort in the world. Okay, they're the lender of last resort, and man, it makes me nervous every time I talk about this. But when the 1988 magazine, The Economist magazine, said in 1988, the cover magazine had the rising phoenix, and it said, "Get ready for a new world currency." Okay, a lot of people talk about that article, about the cover of the magazine, but they never talk about the article. Okay, but when you look in the article of that magazine, what did it talk about? It was talking about how the world in 30 years from now, this was 1988, so it's depicting that by 2018, there would be they had new technologies, basically, that were on the horizon, and these new technologies could help to create a new world currency that would help with global trade, it would help with the FX market, and it would help with liquidity. And they were arguing, the article in the Economist magazine, the Rising Phoenix, argued that this new neutral currency should be managed by the IMF because the IMF has experience with the SDR. But what's funny is the SDR was not successful. So why are they trying to push saying, we think the IMF should be managing this new currency that we could create in 30 years from now? They should manage it because they have experience with the SDR. But the SDR never failed. The SDR never was successful, sorry. So again, they're trying to say IMF is the best institution to manage neutral bridge currency, but because they're experienced with the SDR, but the SDR failed. They're not successful and never got that global adoption, that global liquidity that they were shooting for. So the year after is when you see David Schwartz getting the distributed computer system patent, which is technically the Bitcoin patent. It's a patent on distributed computer systems. It's technically the Bitcoin patent. David Schwartz even acknowledged it about a month or two ago. Sorry.
Like, well, we got we our cakes and Ripple. Don't copy what I do.
So he literally, the patent, if you Google search David Schwartz Bitcoin patent, you'll see the patent right there. And he submitted for the patent in 1988. He was working for the most powerful three-letter agency of the world at the time, and he gets the patent in 1989. So he submits in 1988, gets the patent in 1989, which is the year after that article in Rising Phoenix was created. We get the Bitcoin story, Nakamoto story 2010, which is complete BS. They say that, it's Nakamoto that invented this new technology, it could get us away from the bank, so on. Complete BS. The most powerful three-letter agencies in the world had this technology in the 1980s, 1990s. There's other documents coming out talking about how to create a mint, cryptography, so on. But anyway, so bottom line is the lender of last resort, the only one is the IMF. They talk about liquidity. At the end here, my document, my deep dive, that I showed proved that the IMF, technically to me, the Ripple is just working for the IMF. But the SDR is taking on a new form, different form this time. Obviously, it might not be exactly how the SDR, because new technologies, right? But anyways, I'll leave it there for now because it's going to be a very long video. We got lots of crazy stuff to show our friends here. This is crazy.
Enter in Christine Lagarde once again. She pointed out back in October 22nd, 2024, that there was a live session discussing what? The future cross-border payments. And it was shared over on IMF Connect. If you go there, watch this. Well, we'll introduce this person. It was the opening remarks, Tobias Adrian. If you're not aware who he is, he's the financial counselor and director over at the MCM and the IMF. Adrian is the financial counselor and director of that, like we just pointed out, but more importantly, capital markets department. Again, how many times do you hear Larry Fink talk about capital markets ecosystems, tokenized deposits, so on and so forth? Would a person like this play a key role? Yes. Look at this also. In this capacity, he leads the IMF's work on financial sector surveillance, monetary and macro prudential policies, digital money, financial regulation, bank resolution, debt management, capital markets, and climate. He also oversees capital building activities in IMF member countries regard to supervision and regulation of financial systems, bank resolution, central banking, monetary and exchange rate regimes, central bank digital currency, and debt management. So again, when you heard this gentleman that we just played that clip for, referring to some of these things about where would the wealth go, or how would it be created, or would the assets go rapidly up, I want you to take pause on why this is important. Here's why. When we jump into this, you're going to see a keynote speech from him. And if anything, I'll let Jesse inject on here because I think you want to inject because you just unmuted your mic for a brief moment.
Yeah, so basically Tobias Adrian, again, he's the director of monetary and capital markets of the IMF. I think there's only like one position higher up than him in the IMF, which would be technically the director of the IMF himself. But nevertheless, he's the one who gave the presentation on the XC platform. X meaning neutral, C likely for CBDC. And literally when I did a deep dive on this, and literally the XC platform, the AI gave me literally almost 5 pages of how the XC platform is identical to Ripple's technology in every single way. The interledger protocol, RippleNet, the CBDC platform that Ripple has, cross-border, everything, instant settlement. It gives me literally, again, like almost 5 pages, I think, of bullet points of why the XC platform is absolutely identical to Ripple. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? This is the same guy that gave the presentation on the XC platform. So again, and what are they talking about? Cross-border. What is the new global stablecoin arrangement about? It's a stablecoin that is based on cross-border, right? So it's all about XRP, man. People need to wake up. Like, stop listening to the naysayers and people trying to distract you, saying like, oh no, they're not going to use XRP. No, This anyways, doesn't get bigger than XRP. I mean, we'll talk about Quant in another video, and Stellar plays a role as well. But yeah, aside from Quant, nothing bigger than XRP. All the money, all the money, all the money.
And listen to this. I've gone ahead and fast forward to this key area. We're going to play this and then tie in some big things you're probably not even aware of. Here we go.
Cross-border payments under the auspices of the Brazilian G20 presidency, and with fantastic panelists. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. So we have this jointly organized with the Bank for International Settlement and, of course, CPMI of the BIS. Cross-border payments are the lifeblood of the global economy, really the foundation for international finance and the monetary system. Cross-border payments facilitate remittances, business transactions, as well as the movement of capital across economies, which in turn fuels economies' development and the efficiency of global capital markets. The infrastructure is in transition, and it is creaking in some corners of the global payment system.
Hey, my friend, if you're a day trader or pro, BTCC Exchange will be a game changer for you. BTCC Exchange is one of the world's most preferred and trusted crypto exchanges for day traders and pros, tailored for high volume futures and scalping. Founded in 2011, it's the longest running platform with 0 hacks, licenses in the US, Canada, EU, and more. It's a dream for traders. Top 5 on CoinMarketCap for derivatives, unmatched liquidity, rock bottom fees, plus up to 500 leverage futures. Advanced order types like TWAP and iceberg orders, plus API for algo trading. They also have one of the most user-friendly copy and leverage trading platforms in the world. Join over 600,000 traders, compounding daily scalps into explosive returns. If you're not using BTCC for your day trading, you're seriously missing out. Use my BTCC referral link on the screen, in the description, or in the pinned comment, or scan the barcode on the top right of the screen for up to 11,000 USDT rewards, up to 10% bonus on your first deposit via referral link, easy $50 minimum, and 30-day trading to unlock the bonus, up to 50% off fees and VIP perks like priority support. Leverage and copy trading is risky, so only use what you can afford to lose, or seriously don't do it at all. I launched this YouTube channel to share crucial crypto insights, not to see you make reckless moves and lose your hard-earned money. Testimonials are paraphrased for clarity from real BTCC trader reviews. See description for sources. Never keep all your crypto on exchanges. Use reputable hardware wallets. Links below. Now let's get back to the video.
All right, if you think about that, this is from December 2024. He literally tells you what is happening right now. Now, before I have Jesse chime in, I see you, brother. I see you kind of shaking your head and you're smiling in a good way. I just want to point out that this gentleman mentions some key things, okay? So for one, I want to jump down to this about this guy. So Adrian, okay? Actually, I'm going to have us jump both back on the screen. In my own particular notes, from what I gathered, Adrian, who you just saw, co-authored what is referred to as the IMF FinTech note titled Trust Bridges and Money Flows. You can look it up for yourself. It's called a digital marketplace to improve cross-border payments. This was published in March 2023. And in that book, it explicitly references XRP as a potential private settlement asset in a proposed global digital marketplace for tokenized money and cross-border transactions. Now, if you're looking more into it, the document in itself explores how cryptocurrencies like XRP can reduce frictions in payments by leveraging shared ledgers and mutualized trust mechanisms, contrasting unbacked crypto assets, for example, BTC, with credit-based digital assets like stablecoins. Now, I do have the actual document about the trust bridges and money flows. So it's actually a document, not a book, so I won't get hit with a copyright or anything. But before I share that document, Jesse, I know that you were wanting to kind of chime in on this, so by all means, please do so.
Unbelievable. Like, he literally says that cross-border is the lifeblood of the global financial system. He doesn't say it's a big part, it plays a big role. No, he says it's the lifeblood of the global financial system. And again, that's why they've been working on fixing this corresponding banking system, fixing cross-border, all the issues that come with cross-border, okay? That's why they created Ripple years ago, because again, cross-border is absolutely crucial. And without Ripple, without building the XRP ledger and the Internet of Value, it's a big mess, and the central banks cannot get ahead of themselves. It's too clunky, and they inject liquidity. It doesn't do much because money just doesn't move. It's all sorts of issues, right? So again, this is why Ripple was created, because cross-border is the lifeblood. You're hearing it right from the mouth of like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? But anyways, you're hearing from the mouth of the big kahunas there, right there. Okay, he's telling you it's the lifeblood. So that's why Ripple was created. And then you said about that document, how they talk about how this new global digital marketplace and how Ripple could play a role in this new global digital marketplace. And remember, it's always about liquidity, right? On-demand liquidity. So Max, we're gonna pull up the document coming from the Hyperledger Foundation where it describes XRP as being the global liquidity marketplace. Now here, he mentioned it, you said in the document, cross-border, the document on, anyways, forget the name of the document, but he talked about a global digital marketplace. He calls it a global digital marketplace and how Ripple could play a role. But in the Hyperledger Foundation document, they called it the global liquidity marketplace. Here, he calls it the global digital marketplace, Ripple being the global digital marketplace. So let's pull that document if you don't mind. The document we pulled up the other day where it showed XRP being the global RTGS. And at the bottom, it said that, Ripple, XRP Ledger is global RTGS and the global liquidity marketplace. So again, he's just swapping one word here. Instead of saying global liquidity marketplace, he's saying global digital marketplace. Can you pull that document? Okay, so right here in this document, again, a document that leaked out about 7 to 8 years ago coming from the Hyperledger Foundation, now called the Decentralized Trust. You see cross-border real-time gross settlement at the top, okay? And it's showing you a timeline from, this was a 14-page document. We're only showing you one page here. A lot of people in the XRP community have seen this. But you see 2020, 2025, it's showing how all of the banks, central banks, are all in the commercial banks. And so on the left is your local payments and your RTGS systems, RTGS, okay? And so these are all central banks. Below the RTGS here, below that is all central banks. Net from Bank of Japan, Target2, Fedwire, these are all central banks, okay? You see they're all holding XRP. You see that the RTGS systems are all connected to the XRP ledger via the interledger protocol. You see right on the left hand, you see ILP, 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 ILP. So all the RTGS systems are connecting to the XRP ledger. So the real-time gross settlement systems of the central banks, are all connecting to the XRP ledger. And at the top here, you see global RTGS. Right on top of the XRP ledger, you see global RTGS. Okay, so it's calling the XRP ledger the global RTGS. And on the right hand, at the top, first phrase, it says the global RTGS on the top right. It's saying the global RTGS will remove friction, costs, and risk from cross-currency transactions. So he's telling you the global RTGS, which is the XRP ledger, will remove friction, costs, and risks. The XRP ledger is reducing risk here. It's removing risk and friction and costs for cross-currency. So this is technically cross-border, cross-currency transactions, okay? Which he told you, cross-border is the lifeblood, right? And they're telling you right here that the XRP ledger is going to fix this. Now, at the bottom, way at the bottom, last paragraph, it talks about the interledger protocol will enable financial institutions and central banks to make their existing infrastructure and processes interoperable, okay, with other currencies, asset classes, and the XRP ledger. And then it's going to tell you what the XRP ledger is. It's saying that the XRP ledger is, the global liquidity marketplace and the global decentralized RTGS. So it's the global liquidity marketplace. Now, when he produced that document, he talked about it being a global digital marketplace, right? Here they're calling it global liquidity marketplace. That global digital marketplace that he's talking about, and then he's saying how Ripple could play a role. The global digital marketplace that he's talking about is the XRP ledger, okay? So anytime you see these clowns talking about cross-border payments, liquidity, all this unification, unified, they're talking about Ripple without saying Ripple.
So one idea that's been around, it's widely associated with Ripple, but it's not only associated with Ripple, is this simple chart. What if I move fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat? This is called a bridge crypto or bridge currency. I can sort of say I can go from US dollars to Bitcoin or XRP. You fill in the middle and then move over to the other fiat, Mexican peso in my example. And might that take some cost out of the system? We have Sean's issue earlier of volatility. If the crypto is fluctuating a lot, that causes some issues. If there's a lot of cost or friction, because now you're doing two currency exchanges, not one. I'm calling crypto a currency for this purpose. I know that crypto is not technically a currency, but for this moment, let me just call it, you have two currency exchanges, and thus you have two bid-ask spreads to pay. Just the market makers, you need to pay the bid-ask spreads twice, and you have some volatility if the middle crypto is moving around. But this simple diagram is a big part of what Ripple is trying to create with XRapid. Right, XCurrent is a messaging app of Ripple's, and it's competing with Swift. And it has some reasonable adoption. A lot of banks are starting to use it. But don't confuse that with another product, which is an interesting product that kind of does this, that goes fiat to crypto, crypto to fiat. So what problem, what pain points would this be solving if it worked in the cross-border? Anybody want to remind the class what Tom?
Well, this reduces the number of intermediaries. You don't have to have your bank engage with a correspondence bank, which engages with a local bank, which then it sort of...
All right, so I'm going to say it might lower the intermediation because you still have on the two fiat sides a bank, a local bank and a bank, and to do the crosses, you need some market-making function, which in Ripple's case, they try to build into the application. And they have market makers to provide liquidity. There was a question, somebody mentioned liquidity, some liquidity. But it might lower the numbers of intermediaries. What else might it do?
Okay, I can assure you that. As much as I'm alive, as much as I'm pinching myself right now, I can feel this pinch, okay? I'm telling you, when they talk about cross-border, they're talking about XRP. If they're saying peer-to-peer and maybe for small, medium enterprise, Stellar will play a role there as well. But it's mainly XRP that they're talking about every time without saying XRP. And then he talks about the G20. The G20 put out a roadmap about 5-6 years ago, a roadmap on how to enhance cross-border payments. How are they going to fix this cross-border issue? And everybody is following this G20 roadmap. And he talks about the BIS. The BIS has a cross-border faster payment task force. And literally there's only 2 blockchain companies on there, which while the other one is I forget the name, but technically it's Ripple is one of the only blockchain companies on the faster cross-border payments task force for the BIS, right? And the BIS talks about the unified ledger replacing SWIFT. Well, we know that Ripple replaces SWIFT. Now, Quant provides the programmability, interoperability, and custom APIs for the unified ledger to help all the legacy systems that exist to connect into blockchain and into the unified ledger. But the unified ledger itself is XRP ledger. So Quant is Internet of Trust, XRP is the Internet of Value. So like Gilbert Verdian said, they are the Internet of Trust, and they're providing the programmability for the institutional Internet of Value. Gilbert Verdian called it the institutional Internet of Value. It's right on Twitter. He says they provide the programmability for it. Okay, the Internet of Value he's referring to is the unified ledger, regulated liability network, the regulated settlement network, regulated Internet of Value, the real-time gross settlement, global RTGS, and now the global digital marketplace, global liquidity marketplace, whatever. Quant is providing the programmability for the Internet of Value, but Quant is not the Internet of Value. Quant is not the unified ledger. There's a misconception there because a lot of people that started researching, there's some big Telegram groups, and I'll say it, it is what it is. It's the truth. So some of the biggest Telegram groups for Quant are actually the guy managing these Telegram groups that I was in for 3 or 4 years, doing a lot of research. As soon as you start mentioning XRP, he literally insults you from head to toe and he bans you from the group. Literally, so everybody in that group, almost everybody that's been trying to tell the Quant community, hey, listen, the unified ledger is not XRP. The unified ledger we're trying to tell them it's not Quant. We're trying to tell them it's XRP. They literally get blocked, insulted from head to toe, and banned. So what's happening in those big Telegram groups, I don't know if that has changed now, but it hadn't changed 6 months ago when I started my YouTube channel. So basically what's happening is anybody that disagrees with the guy that is managing the Telegram group, anybody that disagrees with him basically gets insulted from head to toe and banned. So right now, a lot of these big Quant Telegram groups, there's only kind of one narrative in that group. And basically it's because anybody that disagrees with him and tries to show like, no, the XRP ledger is involved in some of these things here, again, they get banned, right? So there's kind of 2 type of people in that group right now. There's the people that still believe in XRP, but they don't dare to say anything because they know they're going to be blocked or kicked out. And there's the other people that agree with him because they haven't heard the other side of the story, because anybody that could have proved him wrong were basically blocked, insulted, and deleted out of the group. So anyways, excuse me. That's why there's still a misconception from some of the Quant community. Not all, but because that's getting better. Obviously, all these videos we're producing and creating is helping. I literally started my YouTube channel for this reason. I've shown very, very, very clearly what role Quant plays and what XRP's role is. I showed there's, because again, I want to make this clear. Quant is every feature that you see from Quant, every solution coming from Quant is literally coming from blockchain. Quant allows you to use multiple chain, to use more than one blockchain at the same time. So every solution you're seeing via Quant is a solution that's built with blockchain. So the idea that, some of the people in the Quant community saying, it's not using XRP, it's not using anything, it's only Quant, is absolutely ridiculous. Quant doesn't do anything without blockchain. Quant, the reason Gilbert Verdian built Quant in the first place is so that we could get the advantage of all the blockchains instead of just being stuck with one blockchain at a time. Anyways, that's another rabbit hole, but just want to explain, that's why there's a misconception there. I don't know, went on a little rant again. It's very important to keep emphasizing that. But yeah, I'll stop there, digress. It's going to be too long for the video. So I really encourage you guys to watch my first few videos on my unified playlist, XRP playlist on my YouTube channel, and my 3 or 4 videos on Quant, my playlist for Quant that I have. I have 2 playlists on my channel where I really explain this to the T, really show you all the proof, the evidence So anyways, that's all I got, Max.
All right, no problem. Let's jump over to this document, why it matters to you guys. So this is Trust Bridges and Money Flows. It's a digital marketplace, like it says. This part I want to highlight, obviously, is IMF. And as you see here in the notes, it says Trust Bridges, like we mentioned. And you see the gentleman that we just showed on that clip Tobias Adrian. All right, a little bit more. This was literally prepared by him as well as a few other participants back in March of 2023. And last but not least, as you see on the bottom, some of the other disclaimers, some of the other notes. Now watch this. Here's what's interesting. If you go to page 11 to 38, really interesting to see what is mentioned here. Okay, so it says here, they address the problem of interoperability in payments is thus defined as the transfer of value. Again, back to what Jesse was talking about. Across trust networks. The next sections demonstrate that solving the interoperability problem is vastly easier for domestic transactions within the same monetary and legal areas. The problem becomes harder across borders, resulting in higher fees and poorer services. All right, so that's interesting as well. And then, of course, they already address everything that we already shared before, the different diagrams, the different models, so on and so forth. But I do like this part. It says, indeed, both banks trust the money issued by the central bank, which is void of default and liquidity risk and is anchored ideally in credible monetary policy and sustainable public debt. If you go back to what we first shared in those video clips, what are they literally talking about? They are talking about, by definition, what you see right here. And that's so important to get into that. Another thing I want to jump into is this. This is on page 8 of 38 in the FinTech notes about trust bridges and money flows. Interesting to see this statement. It says this paper complements Adrian. Yes, that's why we highlighted it. And others, which advances a vision for a cross-border payments exchange and contracting platform called XP. Now, this is interesting. People are like, why does it say XP and not XRP? I'll get into that here in a bit. But it says the XP platform. Again, is Jesse right on some of this? Are they trying to trick us on some of this
Yeah,
stuff?
sorry. I just want to tell you one thing. They call it the XC platform now because I think they probably realize like XP is a bit too close to XRP, so we better change the name. Now they call it the XC platform instead of P.
Yeah, it's constantly changing. It's constantly changing, and you're right about that. So the XP platform, no problem. The XP platform argues that new technologies, tokenization, programming, and encryption should be integrated into infrastructure, facilitating the cross-border exchange of currencies, but also the writing and trading of related contracts, such as to manage risks or design auctions to allocated foreign exchange in relatively thin markets. This paper focuses on trust networks essential to exchange money and discusses specifically how the tokenization of money affects such networks and can be leveraged for more efficient trading. That's big to realize. Now, here's a Grok conversation. I thought I would ask Grok. Maybe Grok knew about this whole thing about XP. It says, from what they gather, they have nothing on it. It says, if XP platform refers to something specific beyond XRPL, for example, like maybe it's just a typo or niche, provide more details for clarification, but they couldn't find any direct matches. So again, it's kind of hard to find direct matches, but that to me seems like a purpose, deliberate removing of a letter of the letter R. And again, that's just my opinion. If somebody has detailed information on it, by all means, share it with us. We do welcome it. You know, I'm not saying I'm like 100% perfect on everything. Now, here's another key area I want to jump into in the document.
Max, sorry, if you go back to the, just read the last phrase that Grok told you there. The ChatGPT, there's one phrase at the bottom. But XRPL fits the description closely. For hands-on building, start with the XRPL docs.
You would be right. Yeah, no, I get that. You'll be technically right, but I'm just looking at something specifically that says XP. That's all, Jesse.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so the other thing I want to jump into, back to this, this is page 26 of 38 of this Trust Bridges and Money Flows, okay? Does it specifically mention Ripple, and does it specifically mention XRP? This is the smoking gun, in my opinion. 3 models arise: a private settlement asset and marketplace, such as Ripple's XRP, an open source marketplace, such as Stellar, so shout out to Stellar, even mentions that, Foundation, or more recently, DeFi networks, et cetera, about a marketplace, settlement, unbacked crypto assets. I'm not a big fan of Lightning Network, but they do at least reference them. But the bottom line is, did it reference Ripple with XRP? Yes, and also even Stellar. So I'm going to kick it over to you for closing comments. What did you think in regard to actually everything from beginning to end?
Yeah, well, I kind of went on a big rant there and explained a bit of what you're showing here. So, yeah, again, it's all the XRP, like they'll call it trust bridges and so on. I mean, some places. So I want people to understand. And again, people that watch almost every single video that we do probably feel that I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make it clear, guys. The statistics show that 80 to 90% of people that are watching a YouTube video have never been on that YouTube channel before. So right now, 80, 90% of people watching us right now, it's the first time on our channel. So that's why it's very important to say these things, right? Otherwise, the information is never going to get out. But if you're moving an asset from one network to the other, so the same asset. So let's say you take the US dollar and you're moving it to another network, that would be using QUANT. QUANT is what allowing all the assets to move from one network to another and for an asset to reside on multiple networks at the same time. But when you're going, and also they're standardizing that at a internet level standard right now called the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. used to be called ODAT. So they're standardizing it right now with the ITF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and MIT. Okay, so they're setting that as a standard. So again, so that's to move one asset from one network to the other. But when you want to go from one asset and you want to exchange that asset to a different type of asset, that's when XRP and the interledger protocol are used. The interledger protocol with the XRP ledger is what allows you to basically go from one asset to the other. So you go from US dollar to XRP to yen, from yen to XRP to tokenized real estate, from tokenized real estate to XRP to maybe, let's say, a gift coupon or rewards coupon or whatever. Okay, so it's any asset to any asset. That's why it's the Internet of Value. Okay, so again, that's different from Quant. Quant is when you want to literally move assets from one network to almost any network. The asset can reside on multiple networks at the same time. So that's pretty much it. Honestly, I mean, you pulled up all the evidence again. It's unbelievable, right? It's first they call it the XP platform, then they call it the XC, then they start talking about Stellar and Ripple. You know, they specifically say 3 models arise, but the third model that they say there is very, very questionable, right? Because they always try to say something else. They never want to just talk about XRP. They always want to kind of give the impression that there might be other solutions potentially, so on. But you know, bottom line here, it's XRP and Stellar. And the document clearly, in the document itself, they're saying 3 models arise, and they mention Ripple and Stellar, and then they, of course, the third is complete BS. They just don't want to say Ripple and Stellar and then leave it there. It's too obvious, right? They're trying their best for us not to figure out, you know. So yeah, just amazing documents you pulled out there.
Well, thank you, and I hope you guys appreciate it. Like, literally listening to that for roughly 4.5 to 5 hours is very time consuming. But we enjoy bringing you guys this information. And again, do us a solid if you listen to it all. It does give us some feedback. Type in this key phrase into the comments, or you can abbreviate it. But it's basically all the money, or you could just type in ATM, right? So all the money, and we'll know that you listened to the entire outline. On behalf of myself and Jesse, or Apex Crypto Consulting NFA, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research drones flood 110%. May the Lord Jesus bless you all. We both truly mean that. We'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.